5 moments in a normal day when you are closer to God than you feel. Have you ever had a day where you wake up, rush through everything, and by nightfall, you realize you haven't thought about God once? Maybe you even whisper a quiet apology before bed saying, "I'm sorry, Lord, I didn't spend time with you today." But what if I told you that you did? What if, in the very moments you thought were too ordinary, too busy, or too silent, God was actually right beside you, closer than your own breath? The truth is, we often imagine God's presence as something that only shows up in grand moments, in worship, in miracles, in breakthroughs, in answered prayers. But the God who created the heavens also lives in the smallest details of your day. He's not only in the mountaintop experiences, He's in the mundane ones too. The ticking of the clock, the quiet sip of coffee, the morning light filtering through your window, these are all whispers of His nearness. We live in a world that teaches us to look for proof, to chase signs and emotions. But God's presence doesn't depend on how you feel. His promise isn't, "I will be with you when you feel it." His promise is, "I am with you always." That means in the silence, He's there. In your frustration, He's there. Even in the moments when your heart feels dry, when your prayers feel mechanical, when you think heaven is quiet, He hasn't moved an inch away. Sometimes, the greatest acts of faith happen not when you feel God's presence strongly, but when you keep walking, believing He's near, even when your emotions tell you otherwise. Think of the disciples on the road to Emmaus after Jesus' resurrection. They walked miles beside Him, talking, wondering where He had gone, never realizing He was right there. That's us so often. We walk through our day, unaware that the divine is walking with us. So before we move into these 5 moments, these sacred touch points hidden in the normal rhythm of your day, I want you to pause and take a breath. Feel that air filling your lungs. That's life. That's grace. That's God sustaining you. You may not feel Him, but He's closer than you know. Every day, in every second, in every heartbeat, He's right there. Not waiting for you to perform, not demanding you to be perfect, just quietly loving you in ways you rarely notice. There's something holy about the morning. The world hasn't started shouting yet. The phone is still quiet. The air feels gentle, as if creation itself is holding its breath before the day begins. And in that stillness, before the rush, before the thoughts start spinning, God is there, waiting. Not impatiently, not demanding your attention, but softly inviting you to notice Him. Every sunrise is a sermon painted by His hand, whispering, "I'm still here. I've been here all along." When you open your eyes, before your mind fills with to-do lists, God is closer than you think. He's in the first thought that crosses your mind. He's in the quiet awareness that you're alive. The same God who watched over you through the night is the one who breathes new mercy into your morning. Scripture says His mercies are new every morning, not recycled, not borrowed, but new. That means every sunrise carries a fresh invitation to begin again. But how often do we rush past that invitation? We reach for the phone before we reach for prayer. We sip coffee before we sip stillness. We scroll before we surrender. And in doing so, we often miss the quiet voice that tries to speak before the world does. Maybe God doesn't need you to start your day with a long prayer or a loud song. Maybe all He wants is a moment of eye contact, a simple "Good morning, Lord. Thank you." Think of Jesus in the Gospels. Often, before the crowds came, before the disciples asked questions, he would withdraw to solitary places early in the morning to pray. Not because he needed more of the Father's love, but because he wanted to align his heart with the Father's will before facing the noise of the day. Morning time has that kind of power. It centers you. It reminds you who you belong to, and it anchors your soul before the winds of life start to blow. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't rush past the miracle of being alive. Open the window. Feel the light. Whisper his name. Maybe you'll feel nothing extraordinary. But even then, you're standing in sacred space, the space where the Maker of heaven and earth leans in to say, "Welcome to another day. I'm here with you." Every morning is a gentle echo of Genesis, a new creation moment where God says, "Let there be light," and invites you to walk with him in it. Work. It's one of the most consuming parts of our lives, yet one of the easiest places to forget about God. Whether you're in an office surrounded by screens, behind a counter serving customers, at home managing endless tasks, or sitting in traffic between meetings, the rhythm of work can feel far removed from anything sacred. But what if the workplace isn't outside God's presence? What if the chaos itself is holy ground? God doesn't only meet us in church, he meets us in motion. The Bible says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord." That means your spreadsheets, your phone calls, your teaching, your cleaning, your building, your creating. All of it can be worship when done with the right heart. When you show kindness to a difficult coworker, when you choose integrity over convenience, when you do your best even when no one's watching, those are moments heaven notices. They may not look like prayer, but they are. So many people imagine their job as something separate from their spiritual life. But the truth is, God often hides in your responsibilities. He's there when you take a deep breath before a stressful meeting. He's there when you find unexpected patience with a customer. He's there when you're exhausted, yet still choose to do the right thing. These are the quiet ways we reflect his character in a busy world. Think about Joseph in Egypt. He didn't serve God from a pulpit. He served him in a palace, managing food, organizing labor, dealing with pressure and politics. Yet God's presence was with him, even in a foreign land, even in unfair situations. The same Spirit that gave Joseph wisdom and favor is the same Spirit that works through you in your daily grind. Maybe you've prayed for God to use you, but you've missed how he already is. Every conversation you have, every task you complete, every challenge you face, it's all an altar. Work becomes holy when you invite God into it. When your hands move, his hands move. When your mind creates, his creativity flows through you. The workplace, as messy and stressful as it can be, is one of the most real places you can meet him. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by your schedule or underappreciated by others, remember this: God sees every unseen effort. He's not counting hours. He's counting faithfulness. And in that faithfulness, in the middle of noise and duty, he's closer than you think. The chaos of work may feel secular, but to God, it's sacred space, because he's right there with you, working through your work. Life rarely goes according to plan. You can set the perfect schedule, prepare every detail, and still find your day derailed by something unexpected: a phone call, a delay, a problem, a person who needs you. Our instinct is to see interruptions as inconveniences. But what if those interruptions are actually invitations? What if God hides behind what feels like a disruption? Jesus' life on earth was full of interruptions. He was on his way to heal one person, and another reached out and touched his garment. He was teaching crowds when a man was lowered through the roof. He was walking with his disciples when blind men cried out for mercy. Yet not once did he say, "Not now, I'm too busy." Every interruption became an opportunity for love, compassion, and revelation. That's the rhythm of divine timing, God working in moments we didn't plan. Maybe you've had a day like that. You're rushing to finish a task, and someone asks for help. You're running late and traffic slows you down. You're focused on your to-do list, and suddenly a friend calls in tears. It's easy to sigh, to feel frustrated, to see these moments as obstacles. But sometimes God's voice doesn't thunder from heaven. It knocks softly through an unexpected event. He might be redirecting your path for a reason you can't see yet. There's a story about a man who missed his train because he stopped to help someone who dropped their belongings. Later, he found out that train was involved in an accident. Sometimes what feels like an inconvenience is actually God's hand of protection. Sometimes a delay keeps you from walking into danger. Sometimes a change in plans leads you to someone who needs your light in their darkness. The divine interruptions are often subtle. They don't come with music or miracles, but they shift the course of your day in quiet, meaningful ways. God isn't just in your plans. He's also in your detours. He's not only in what you scheduled, He's in what surprised you. And when you start to see interruptions not as irritations, but as possible moments of divine appointment, everything changes. So when something disrupts your rhythm today, take a breath and whisper, "Lord, is this you?" Because sometimes the God you've been praying to meet is waiting for you in the moment you didn't plan. Every interruption can become a conversation with heaven, if you're willing to pause long enough to listen. There's something sacred about a meal. It's simple, it's ordinary, yet throughout Scripture, God has used the table as a meeting place between the divine and the human. From the manna in the wilderness to Jesus breaking bread with his disciples, food has always been more than sustenance. It's been communion. But in our modern rhythm, eating has become something rushed, something done in passing, something secondary. We eat while scrolling, while driving, while distracted. And in doing so, we often miss the quiet invitation that God sets before us. Sit, be still, know that I am here. When Jesus broke bread, he didn't just feed people, he connected heaven and earth. Every meal he shared carried grace. He blessed the food, gave thanks, and then gave it away. And even today, when you pause before eating, when you whisper a small prayer of gratitude, you are echoing that same sacred act. The table becomes an altar, and the food before you becomes a symbol of his provision. Every bite is a reminder that you are sustained not by your own effort, but by his faithfulness. Think about how many unseen miracles had to happen for that meal to reach your table. The seed planted in soil, the rain that fell, the sun that rose, the hands that harvested, the work that provided. It's all grace upon grace. Every meal is a quiet testimony that God provides, that he cares about your body as much as your soul. And in a world that moves too fast, stopping to eat with awareness becomes an act of worship. Even Jesus chose to reveal his resurrected self, not in a temple, but at a table. The disciples on the road to Emmaus recognized him only when he broke the bread. It was in the ordinary act of eating that the extraordinary became visible. That's how God works. He hides himself in the simple things until your heart slows down enough to notice. So the next time you sit down to eat, don't just thank Him for the food. Thank Him for the moment, for the people around you, for the air you breathe, for the grace that sustains your life. Whether it's a feast or a simple plate of rice, it's holy. Because when gratitude fills your heart, God fills the room. And you realize that the table before you is not just a place to eat. It's a place to encounter the one who never stops feeding your soul. The afternoon hours are often the hardest. The energy of the morning fades, the noise of the day builds, and fatigue starts to weigh heavy. It's the part of the day when you feel stuck between what's been done and what's still waiting. The body tires, the mind drifts, and the soul begins to quiet down in its own subtle exhaustion. And yet, this is often when God whispers the loudest. It's in these hours that you might feel furthest from Him, not because He's gone, but because you've stopped noticing. The rush of work, the strain of responsibility, the weight of time can drown out the gentle voice that's been speaking all along. But if you pause, even for a moment, you'll sense it. The still, small voice calling you back to center. Be still and know that I am God. It's not a command to stop living. It's an invitation to remember who's with you as you live. Sometimes, God doesn't speak through grand revelations, but through subtle awareness. It might be the sudden peace that settles in your heart for no reason. It might be the quiet strength that helps you keep going when you're weary. It might be a thought that feels softer, kinder, truer than your own. That's Him, speaking not to your ears, but to your spirit. Even Jesus grew weary. After hours of teaching, healing, and walking, He would retreat to pray, to recharge, to be alone with the Father. If the Son of God needed stillness in the middle of His mission, how much more do we? The afternoon lull is not an accident. It's a built-in reminder that we are finite, that we need to stop striving and start listening again. So when your day begins to blur, when the tasks feel endless and your focus fades, take a breath. Step outside if you can. Look at the sky. Whisper a simple prayer. Lord, I'm tired, but I know you're here. And in that honest moment, He'll meet you. Not with thunder, not with lightning, but with calm assurance. You don't have to climb mountains to hear Him. Sometimes you just need to stop long enough to feel His nearness. The quiet voice in the afternoon is not a new message. It's the same eternal one, spoken gently. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. I am here. And when you learn to hear that voice in the middle of your busy day, every hour becomes sacred, every breath becomes prayer, and even your exhaustion becomes holy ground. There's a holiness that descends with the evening. The light softens, the air cools, and the noise of the day begins to fade. It's the time when creation itself seems to take a deep breath, exhaling the weight of the day. And in that stillness, God draws near in a different way, not in the energy of morning, not in the activity of work, but in the quiet of reflection. The same God who was with you in the rush of daylight now whispers in the calm, asking you to pause and look back. Evening is not just the end of a day, it's an invitation to communion. It's a moment to trace the fingerprints of God over the past hours, to see where He strengthened you when you were weak, where He protected you from what you didn't see, where He gave you peace in moments you didn't understand. It's a sacred time for gratitude, a time to say, Lord, I saw you today, even in the little things. When the sun begins to set, everything changes tone. The sky burns in colors of surrender, as if creation itself is bowing in worship. The day is done, but God's presence is not. He meets you in the dim light, not to demand, but to dwell. In the Old Testament, evening was the time of sacrifice, a moment when people would offer back to God what they had been given. Today, that sacrifice can simply be your attention, turning your heart back to Him after a long day of wandering thoughts and constant motion. Jesus often retreated at night to pray. It was in the quiet darkness that He found communion with the Father. When the crowds were gone, when the voices were silent, He listened. That same invitation stands for you. You don't have to end the day numb, scrolling until you fall asleep. You can end it aware that God has been walking beside you every step. So before the night takes over, stop for a moment. Let your thoughts settle. Let gratitude rise. Even if the day didn't go as planned, even if you made mistakes, God's grace remains. Evening is not about regret. It's about renewal. It's a reminder that rest is holy, that sleep itself is an act of faith. When you close your eyes, you're saying, God, I trust you to keep watch while I rest. And He does. He always does. The holy shadows of evening are not the end of your connection with God. They're proof that His presence remains, even in the dark. Not every day feels bright. There are moments when the soul feels heavy, when the heart aches for reasons it can't explain. There are hours when prayers feel unanswered, when heaven seems silent, when the world feels dim. And yet, these are often the very places where God is closest. He is not distant in your sorrow. He is dwelling in it with you. The Bible calls Him a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. That means He doesn't just understand your pain, He's lived it. We tend to think that God's presence is proven by joy, but some of the most sacred encounters happen in silence and tears. When words fail, when strength runs out, when all you can do is sit in stillness, He's there. Sometimes He doesn't speak because His comfort is deeper than words. He's not solving. He's holding. He's not fixing. He's feeling with you. Elijah learned this truth in the wilderness. He was exhausted, afraid, and ready to give up. He expected God to show up in wind, in fire, in earthquake, but God came in a whisper. That's how God often comes in sorrow, not to overwhelm you, but to draw you close. The whisper says, "You're not alone. I'm still here." The silence is not absence. It's presence too deep for sound. David wrote in the Psalms, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Notice that God didn't remove the valley. He didn't take David around it. He walked with him through it. The same is true for you. The presence of pain doesn't mean the absence of God. Sometimes it's the clearest proof that He's near, because only love sits quietly beside you in the dark. When you're in sorrow, you may not feel Him. You may not hear Him. But faith doesn't depend on feeling. Faith holds on to what it knows, even when the heart can't sense it. And what you know is this: He promised never to leave you. That means that even in tears, even in silence, you are not abandoned. So if you find yourself in a quiet room, staring into the stillness of a hard night, remember this truth: God is there. Not waiting for you to smile again, not disappointed in your weakness, but present, closer than your pain, closer than your breath. He's the God who sits in the ashes with you, who listens when you can't speak, who turns your sighs into prayers. In your sorrow, he is not gone. He's just whispering softer than the noise of your hurt. We often look for God in the extraordinary, in miracles, in breakthroughs, in the unexplainable. But most of the time, he is hiding in plain sight, moving through the smallest acts that seem too ordinary to matter. The way you speak kindly to someone who's impatient, the quiet moment you choose forgiveness over bitterness, the small prayer whispered under your breath during a busy day. These are not small in heaven's eyes. They are sacred echoes of his nature living through you. Holiness is not a stage you stand on. It's a posture of the heart. When you choose love when anger would be easier, when you offer patience when frustration rises, when you serve without expecting recognition, God smiles. That's the hidden grace of ordinary acts. You might think your life isn't spiritual enough, that you aren't doing big things for God. But what if the big things in his kingdom are actually the little things done with love? Jesus said that even giving a cup of cold water in his name would not go unrewarded. That means heaven is paying attention to what the world overlooks. Every moment of compassion, every choice to forgive, every small sacrifice matters. You don't need a platform to change lives. You just need a heart that reflects his. When you encourage someone, when you listen to a friend, when you do your work with honesty, you are revealing God's presence to the world around you. Think of Mary, the mother of Jesus. She didn't preach, she didn't perform miracles, she simply said yes. Her obedience in ordinary moments changed the course of history. The same is true for you. God doesn't need grand gestures. He needs faithful hearts. The grace hidden in ordinary acts is the quiet revolution of love that keeps the world from collapsing under its own weight. So when you're washing dishes, driving home, helping a child, or comforting a friend, remember this: every act done with love becomes divine. Heaven and earth meet in the moments we live with intention and humility. God doesn't wait for you to do something important before showing up. He's already there, sanctifying every detail. Your life, with all its small acts of goodness, is a living prayer. The sacred doesn't happen apart from the ordinary. It happens right in the middle of it. If there's one truth that can change everything, it's this: you were never alone, not even for a heartbeat. From morning to night, from joy to sorrow, from chaos to calm, God has been walking beside you, closer than you could ever feel. The challenge is not his nearness, it's our awareness. We forget. We drift. We let noise fill the space where silence could remind us he's still here. Living aware of his presence doesn't mean retreating from life. It means learning to see him in it. It's opening your eyes in the morning and realizing that the breath in your lungs is grace. It's walking into work knowing that your effort is worship. It's pausing during interruptions to ask, "Lord, what are you showing me?" It's ending the day with gratitude instead of exhaustion, knowing that every step was guided, every moment was watched over. Awareness transforms the ordinary into holy ground. The 5 moments we've explored, morning stillness, work, interruptions, meals, and rest, are not just times in your day. They're sacred intersections where heaven touches earth. And when you begin to live with open eyes, you start seeing those intersections everywhere. The conversation that lifts your spirit, the quiet walk that brings peace, the challenge that shapes your character, all of it becomes worship. You begin to realize that God doesn't visit your life occasionally. He inhabits it fully. David once wrote, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence?" The answer is nowhere. You can't escape love that steadfast. Whether you're on the mountaintop or in the valley, whether you're rejoicing or wrestling, His presence surrounds you. Living aware of that truth changes how you face everything. You no longer strive to find God. You rest in knowing He's already found you. So as you move forward, carry this awareness with you. Every moment is a doorway into His presence if you're willing to walk through it. When you wake up, whisper His name. When you work, do it as unto Him. When life interrupts you, respond with grace. When you eat, give thanks. When you lie down, rest in His care. This is how you walk with God, not just on Sundays, not just in prayer meetings, but in the heartbeat of ordinary life. You are closer to God than you feel. You always have been. And when you begin to live like that's true, every day becomes holy, every breath becomes praise, and your entire life becomes a conversation with the one who never leaves your side.